Okay, here we are with, I'm here today with a brand new Let's Play. This is, as you can probably tell from the title screen, Dragon Age Origins. And I've been really excited to do a Dragon Age Let's Play. I am a really big fan of this franchise and have been for pretty much since it began. I started playing Dragon Age Origins not long after it came out in 2009, and I was pretty much immediately sucked into the universe. It's a really fantastic world. It's probably my favorite video game franchise right now. It just there's just so much about it that I love. It's I've always been a big fan of fantasy and a lot of fantasy tropes that are pretty common and done very well in Dragon Age. And I also really like the way that they make use of and occasionally play with and subvert some of the more common fantasy tropes in this franchise. So I've been really excited to sort of share this with you. And yeah, I think we'll just probably go ahead and dive into the opening cinematic, because there is an opening cinematic before we get to character creation. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then once we get to the character creation screen, I'll explain a little bit more about how I'm going to do this and what I'm going to, how I'm going to be playing this game, and whatnot. So yeah, so here we go with the beginning of Dragon Age Origins, and we'll start a brand new game now, of Origins, yes. And so is the golden city blackened with each step you take in my hall. Marvel at perfection, for it is fleeting. You have brought sin to heaven and doom upon all the world.
The Chantry teaches us that it is the hubris of men which brought the Darkspawn into our world. The mages had sought to usurp heaven, but instead, they destroyed it. They were cast out, twisted and cursed by their own corruption. They returned as monsters, the first of the Darkspawn. They became a blight upon the lands, unstoppable and relentless. The Dwarven kingdoms were the first to fall, and from the deep roads, the Darkspawn drove at us again and again, until finally we neared annihilation. Until the Grey Wardens came. Men and women from every race, warriors and mages, barbarians and kings. The Grey Wardens sacrificed everything to stem the tide of darkness, and prevailed. It has been 4 centuries since that victory, and we have kept our vigil. We have watched and waited for the Darkspawn to return. But those who once called us heroes have forgotten. We are few now, and our warnings have been ignored for too long. It may even be too late. For I have seen with my own eyes what lies on the horizon. Maker, help us all.
Okay, so after that fantastic little intro, we get to make our character. And as you can see here, it says the background you select will determine which of 6 distinct opening stories you play through. That's the Origins part of Dragon Age Origins. It's the whole shtick of this game. It also affects how characters respond to you throughout the game. Simply because the different races and different backgrounds sort of can carry with them various stigmas. Now, of course, I am familiar with this game. This is not a blind playthrough. I've played this a few times. I had to think long and hard about which origin I would want to play through for this Let's Play. And the obvious answer, of course, is the one that's my favorite. I have played all 6 origins, though I have not played every origin through the entire game. I've just, played all 6 of the little mini prologues. So I'm familiar with all of them. They're all really good. They're all very interesting, and depending on what your preferences are, they're all great little stories, and have really good setups for different ways to play the character. From a roleplay perspective, and from a lore perspective, they all have sort of different things that make them interesting. Both in terms of relevance to the story of Origins and even relevance to sort of the broader thrust of the franchise. And ultimately, I think I'm going to go ahead and just do my favorite origin, which is the Mage origin. I am a big fan of magic users and spellcaster classes in every fantasy game that I've ever played, really. That's pretty much what I always tend to go for as a first choice. If there's a spellcaster or a magic class, that's what I usually go for first. And Dragon Age is no different. We're going to go ahead and choose our female. Of course, I pretty much always play female characters when I can. In my case, I'm going to play probably human mage, just because that's just kind of my personal preference. But yeah, in Dragon Age, it's like, my love of the mage class goes beyond even simple gameplay mechanics. While they are the most fun for me to play, and in Origins especially, I find the mage to be the most versatile and most customizable class in the game. Which makes it a lot more interesting for me than the others. But also in terms of the lore and the story and how magic and magic users are situated in the world of Dragon Age, I really, really like it. I think it's really interesting and really cool how this universe deals with magic and with mages in general. So yeah, here we can say men and women in Ferelden are generally regarded as equals. Ferelden is the nation in which this game will be taking place. Both genders are evenly represented in most organizations. Not really, but whatever. We'll pretend they are for the sake of argument. Noble houses and military forces. Fair enough. I am going to go ahead and read all of the descriptions, especially of the backgrounds, because they are really interesting. But yeah, we are going to go with mage. So humans, of course, the most numerous yet the most divided of all races. Only 4 times have they ever united under a single cause, the last being centuries ago. Religion and the chantry play a large part in human society. It distinguishes them culturally from elves and dwarves more than anything else. Humans can be warriors, rogues, or mages. Some nice racial benefits. It's like a really broad set of racial benefits, so it's good for any class, basically, is what they're saying. Because you have plus strength, plus dexterity, plus magic, and plus cunning, so you get a little bit of a bonus pretty much no matter which class you play. Elves. Once enslaved by humans, most elves have all but lost their culture, scrounging and impoverished living in the slums of human cities. Only the nomadic Dalish tribes still cling to their traditions, living by the bow and the rule of their old gods as they roam the ancient forests, welcome nowhere else. Elves can be warriors, rogues, or mages. Elves get especial boosts to willpower and magic, so they do make especially good mages. But of course, any class benefits from these extra attributes. And then of course we have dwarves. Dwarves are rigidly bound by caste and tradition. They have a very, very strict class system. The dwarves have been waging a losing war for generations, trying to protect the last stronghold of their once vast underground empire from the Darkspawn. Dwarves are very tough and have a high resistance to all forms of magic, thus preventing them from becoming mages. So, in this game, the dwarf is the only race that cannot be a mage. So you're barred from being a mage if you want to play as a dwarf. But they have a lot of resistance to hostile magic, which is nice because mage enemies in this game are pretty OP. They can be a pain in the butt. I'm not gonna lie. So the human noble is a pretty good origin. Born to wealth and power, second only to royalty, you find your training in both diplomacy and battle put to the test as your brother leads the bulk of your family's forces to war in the south. So basically, you're the one left behind to guard your family's lands in the human noble origin. The elf backgrounds, you have your choice of Dalish or city elf if you're a warrior or a rogue. And the difference is basically the Dalish elves... proud of your role as one of the few true elves, you have always assumed you would spend your life with your tribe, until a chance encounter with a relic of your people's past threatens to tear you away from everything you have ever known. So the Dalish are kind of isolationists. They're very nomadic, tribal type. They live in... They sort of wander around the forest, sort of like... sort of like Irish travelers, something like that, or like Romani peoples, and they cling very tightly to their beliefs, and they pretty much have isolated themselves from humans. City elves, on the other hand, live in slums in the cities, in ghettos, basically. So you've always lived under the heavy thumb of your human overlords, but when a local lord claiming his privilege with the bride shatters your wedding day, the simmering racial tensions explode in a rain of vengeance. So the city elf origin is pretty rapey, I'm not gonna lie. But it is really interesting too. And yeah, the difference between Dalish and city elves is that city elves essentially live in ghettos in human cities, and the Dalish sort of wander around the forest in their tribes. City elves are mostly followers of the human religion, whereas the Dalish have their own religion. And the dwarves, you can you're either a dwarf commoner or a dwarf noble. In the dwarf kingdom is extremely stratified based on class. So each one of those has a really interesting story to it, depending on what you choose. But as I said, ultimately we're going to go with a human mage. Honestly, the only reason I slightly prefer human mage to elf mage, the origin story is exactly the same whether you play a human or an elf mage. You always have the magi origin story. It's basically exactly the same. But I I have a slight preference for the human mage. For one reason and one reason only. The human mage protagonist is actually a distant relation of the Dragon Age 2 protagonist. And that I have just always liked that little bit of trivia. That's the only reason why I prefer human mage to elf mage. So, the Magi origin is really fascinating in this game. Wielding a power as dangerous as it is potent, you know that magic is a curse for those lacking the will to control it. You anxiously await your harrowing, the one chance to prove yourself against the demons lurking without and within, succeed or be slaughtered by the knights who ward against your kind. So that's the thing with magic and Dragon Age, in the Dragon Age universe. Magic is greatly feared by the common people. Which makes sense, you know, if your next door neighbor can suddenly start shooting fire from their fingertips, especially in a world where the rest of the technology is basically medieval, that could be a problem. A mage who gets angry or goes crazy can basically burn down your entire village on a whim. So magic is pretty scary in Dragon Age. And therefore, mages, there is a system in place whereby mages are sent to what's called circle towers to learn to control their magic and to be sort of segregated from the non-magical population, and to, as a way, theoretically, as a way to protect mages from, you know, the people who are afraid of them and might lynch them for being mages, and to protect the general populace from the threat of dangerous magic. And this is very much a part of the religion in Thedas, in the world of Dragon Age. The religion of Thedas is very sort of anti-magic. It treats magic with a lot of suspicion. And so magic users, mages, are kind of stuck in these circle towers. If you're not in a circle, you're considered an apostate. You're an illegal mage, and you're subject to arrest, imprisonment, even being killed for being an apostate. So it's very fraught kind of situation, no matter what. And so this playthrough, this Let's Play of the entire Dragon Age franchise, I'm going to be playing all 3 games. And I'm going to play all 3 games as mages. Each game has a different protagonist, but I'm going to play all of them as a mage. Just to sort of look at the different ways that it can be approached, both from a roleplay and a gameplay perspective, and to sort of dig into that lore and to see sort of the development of the class and the lore about mages and magic in Dragon Age, because I just think it's really interesting and fun. That said, I also, now I'm going to go next.
Greetings.
And I'm also going to point out that I do have a few mods installed. Nothing that really affects gameplay, just some aesthetic things, because I like having different, I like making my warden look pretty, and I'm kind of, after a certain point, I get kind of tired of the, you know, the standard hairstyles or whatever. So I just have some, like, fancier hairstyles installed, and I also have some armors for the Grey Wardens that are based on the Dragon Age 2 designs for Grey Warden armor. So all the Grey Warden characters will be wearing Grey Warden armor. That's really about it. Oh, and I have the no helmet mod installed so that I can not have my helmet on, so I don't have to have these ugly hats on all the time. So yeah, that said, I think we're going to go through, actually, I kind of like this preset. Obviously, I'm going to give her hair, but in terms of the facial structure, I actually kind of like this preset, so I'm going to stick with this one. None of these, the skin complexions are all weird. Yeah, I wonder if anyone ever actually uses the skin complexion. I'm just going to use the standard. Okay, so let's do this. So yeah, naming conventions. Oh my god. I'm so bad at naming conventions. I tend to just sort of name characters after other characters that I like, or yeah, usually just like other characters from other fictional media that I like. I think I might name this one though Ariadne. First, well, my cat's name is Ariadne, but also she's a Greek princess. She led Theseus out of the labyrinth. So, a character from Greek mythology. So yeah, that's Ariadne Amel, and so yeah, I think I'll probably cut out most of the actual character creation stuff because this is getting to be a long video. So yeah, that was our first Dragon Age Origins video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And in the next episode, we will finish off our character and start the mage origin. So yeah, I hope you'll join me. As always, if you like what you see, please like, comment, subscribe, share with all your friends, and we'll see you in the next episode. Later!